The iconic American actor Burt Reynolds has died at the age of 82.
For many years, Smokey and the Bandit wasn't just a fun movie. It became something bigger, something people all over loved. And Burt Reynolds? He was the cool guy everyone remembered. But behind the fast cars, the big laughs, and all the smiles, there was something he never talked about. He kept it quiet for a very long time. Then, not long before he passed away, Reynolds finally told the truth. What really happened while filming? Why did he wait so long to speak up? Join us in this video as we discuss the details. The truth about Smokey and the Bandit. Julian White once sat down for a relaxed and heartfelt conversation with the late, well-known actor Burt Reynolds. This special chat took place for a program called Talking About Cars with Generation Auto. The interview, which happened sometime before Mr. Reynolds passed away, gave people a chance to hear stories from his life that they may not have heard before. The focus was mostly on cars, his love for them, his early memories with them, and how they played a part in his life and in the movies he made. But it wasn't just about cars. It was also about the people he worked with, the people he loved, and the moments that meant the most to him along the way. During the talk, Mr. Reynolds shared a story from way back when he was still a young man. He spoke about how the very first car he ever drove wasn't really his own. In fact, it was his father's car. His dad, who wasn't just any man but actually the chief of police, used to go to sleep at night, and young Burt would wait patiently. Once his father was asleep, Burt would quietly sneak outside and take the car for a drive. He didn't have permission, of course. He just wanted to drive, to feel the thrill of the road under the tires, even if it meant breaking a rule or two. One night, though, things didn't go quite as planned. His father woke up and noticed two things. Burt wasn't in his room, and his car was gone too. That's when things got serious. His dad got someone to drive him around to find Burt, and when he finally tracked him down, he brought him home. That moment started what Mr. Reynolds described as a long cat-and-mouse kind of game between father and son. It wasn't just a one-time thing. It happened over and over, for years. And while it might sound like trouble, Mr. Reynolds didn't speak about it with anger or regret. In fact, he spoke warmly about his dad. Even though his father punished him, sometimes with a wooden paddle that Mr. Reynolds said his dad would warm up on his rear, he still taught the world about him. He called him honest, steady, and said that he couldn't have asked for a better father. As the conversation went on, the topic shifted toward cars. Not just that first one he borrowed, but all the cars he had owned over the years. Mr. Reynolds said he had all kinds, everything from hot rods to really fast sports cars. He had tried out many types of cars in his lifetime, and he seemed to enjoy talking about them. But when asked if there was one car he would want back, if he could choose just one, he didn't hesitate. He said he would pick the very first Pontiac Trans Am he ever had. That particular car was tied to one of the most famous movies he ever did, Smokey and the Bandit, which was filmed in 1977. He explained that it was during the making of that movie that he got his first real look at the Trans Am, and it was love at first sight. Mr. Reynolds described how seeing the car for the first time was something unforgettable. He said it reminded him of how a kid might feel seeing a dream car roll out of a truck for the very first time. One of his co-stars, Jerry Reed, gave the car a nickname, Honey Hush. And to this day, that name stuck with Mr. Reynolds as something special. He lit up when he talked about it. One intriguing detail Burt Reynolds revealed about Smokey and the Bandit was that much of the dialogue wasn't scripted. It was improvised. This suggests that the film's charm and humor may have come more from the natural chemistry and spontaneity between the actors than from the written script. It's possible that this unscripted style is what gave the movie its timeless, free-spirited feel, something audiences still connect with decades later. So, what was it really like behind the scenes of Smokey and the Bandit? And how much of Burt Reynolds' charm came from the script, or just from being himself? Let's take a closer look. Friends, laughter, and lasting memories. Burt didn't stop at just talking about the car. Mr. Reynolds also shared how much he missed some of the people he had worked with during that time. He mentioned two names that brought a lot of emotion to his face, Jerry Reed and Dom DeLuise. He said losing them was hard, and that they were the kind of people who couldn't ever be replaced. They weren't just good actors, they were good friends. They made him laugh, they made work feel like play, and they made the memories from those movies even more special. When Mr. Reynolds was asked about how closely the actors stuck to the script during the filming of Smokey and the Bandit, he gave a surprising answer. He said he didn't remember the script at all, not one word of it. That's because almost everything they did on set was made up at the moment. They didn't rely on written lines. They just talked to each other naturally and had fun with it. That's part of what made the movie feel so alive and fun, and why so many people still love it today. Mr. Reynolds also talked about Sally Field, who played his love interest in the movie. He shared that when they were casting the role, he said he wanted Sally Field for the part. But not everyone agreed. Some people in charge said she wasn't sexy enough for the role. Mr. Reynolds strongly disagreed with them. He told them that talent is sexy, and that Sally Field had more than enough talent. He was right, too. After that movie, Sally Field went on to win big awards like a Tony, an Emmy, and even an Oscar. Mr. Reynolds took a little pride in that, knowing he had believed in her from the beginning. There was also a scene in the movie that stood out in Mr. Reynolds' memory. In that scene, Sally Field asked him, "Does this car move?" He responded by hitting the gas and taking off. He said she loved the feeling of speed, and that the Trans Am was so smooth that no matter how fast they went, she never got scared. He described it as a car that handled so well you couldn't even scare someone in it. The conversation moved on to another well-loved actor, Jackie Gleason, who also starred in the film. Mr. Reynolds smiled when he talked about Mr. Gleason, calling him the best. He shared a funny story about how Gleason had a code word for when he wanted a drink while on set. He would say, "hamburger," and his assistant would bring him a large glass of vodka. Even though he drank quite a bit, Mr. Gleason always managed to stay on his feet and say all of his lines just right. Mr. Reynolds said it was hard not to laugh while working with him because he was so funny and full of life. He remembered him not just as a co-star, but as a truly wonderful man. Another part of the story that came up was the origin of the name Buford T. Justice, the character Gleason played. Mr. Reynolds explained that the name came from a real person he met back in high school. There was a small town, and their football team had a tough player named Buford. Mr. Reynolds' team played them in a preseason game, and during that game, Buford tackled him and then did something strange. He bit him on the leg. When Reynolds asked him why, Buford said, "I just liked the taste of an A1 football player," and asked if he could have another bite. Mr. Reynolds said no, of course, but never forgot the moment. Later on, when they were making the movie, that memory came back, and the name Buford T. Justice was born. As the conversation came to a close, Mr. Reynolds continued to show just how much certain people, cars, and moments had stayed with him throughout his life. Even though the years had passed and many things had changed, the memories were still sharp and full of feeling. His stories gave listeners a chance to understand him not just as a movie star, but as a person with a rich, funny, and deeply emotional past. But what if one of the most light-hearted and unexpected films of the 70s held a treasure trove of secrets, surprises, and real-life connections just waiting to be uncovered? Let's find out. A simple movie with a big surprise. At first glance, the 1970s movie Smokey and the Bandit might not really seem like a big deal. It might even look like just a silly or funny little film from back in the day. Even though the movie had some big-name stars, like Burt Reynolds, Sally Field, and Jackie Gleason, it still looked like a very simple, cheesy comedy on the outside. But if someone takes a little more time to look closer and go deeper, they might start to notice that there are a lot of strange, funny, and even surprising things that happened behind the scenes when the movie was being made. When it came out, it ended up making a whole lot of money. In total, the film brought in around $126 million. That's a huge number, especially for back then. In fact, it ended up being one of the top-earning movies in the United States for that whole year. It came in second place, only behind Star Wars, which was a giant film at the time. The person who directed Smokey and the Bandit was Hal Needham. At that point in his life, Hal had never directed a movie before. He didn't really come from the usual background of film directors. Before this, he worked as a stuntman. Actually, he was not just any stuntman, he was a really good one. In the 60s, Hal Needham was already known as the highest-paid stuntman in the whole business. He did dangerous action scenes for other actors, stepping in as their double. He worked for stars like Burt Reynolds, Clint Eastwood, Clint Walker, and a bunch of others. Even though he had done really well as a stuntman, Hal Needham decided he wanted to try something new. He stepped out of his comfort zone and took a chance by trying to direct a full movie. That big risk paid off. The movie was a huge hit, and after that, Hal and Burt Reynolds worked together many more times. They made other action comedy movies like Cannonball Run, Hooper, and Stroker Ace. They became a pretty strong team when it came to movies with wild stunts and lots of fun action. The main story in Smokey and the Bandit is all about two friends named Bo, Bandit Darville, and Cletus Snowman Snow. Bandit is played by Burt Reynolds, and Snowman is played by country singer Jerry Reed. The two of them team up to do something pretty crazy. They try to move 400 cases of beer across the country, even though it's not legal to do so. Along the way, they run into trouble with law enforcement, and lots of silly, over-the-top stuff starts to happen. The movie is full of funny moments, physical comedy, and of course a bunch of car chases and stunts. That was something Hal Needham was really good at, and it showed in the film. Even though the movie's plot is very simple and even kind of silly, the way it was made and the stuff that happened while making it are actually really interesting. One thing that made the movie possible in the first place was the friendship between Hal Needham and Burt Reynolds. Without that friendship, the movie might not have ever happened. Back in the 60s, when Hal was the top stuntman, he often worked as Burt's double. After doing so much work together, the two became close friends. In fact, after Hal Needham went through a divorce, he didn't have a place to live. Burt Reynolds helped him out and let him stay in his pool house. And not just for a few weeks or months, Hal ended up living there for over 10 years. While they were living that close together, they spent a lot of time talking and hanging out. That's when the idea for Smokey and the Bandit really started to come together. It was something they dreamed up while just being friends and spending time together. If the early parts of the film's story were already full of surprises, personal ties, and unexpected truths, then what more could be hiding behind the scenes as the production kicked into high gear? Stay tuned for more hidden truths and real-life connections. Sally Field, who played the female lead character named Carrie, also known by the nickname Frog, had her own reason for taking the role. By that time, she had already done a lot of acting on television. She had played sweet, cute younger girls on shows like Gidget and The Flying Nun. Later, she also played a much different role in the TV miniseries Sybil, where she played a character who was seen as unattractive and had mental health struggles. Sally Field felt like she was stuck. She wanted to change how people saw her. She didn't want to just be known as the girl next door or the troubled girl. She wanted to prove that she could play a more grown-up, romantic, and attractive role. So when the offer came for her to play Frog in Smokey and the Bandit, she saw it as a good chance to change her image. She took the part quickly, hoping it would lead to more serious and diverse roles in the future. The movie's plot might sound silly today, but there was a bit of real-life truth behind it. In the movie, Bandit and Snowman are trying to sneak a bunch of Coors beer from Texas all the way to Atlanta. That might seem like just a made-up story, but back in the 70s, it was actually kind of true. At that time, Coors beer wasn't sold east of the Mississippi River. It was made in Colorado, and it had to be kept cold and shipped really fast, or else it would spoil. Because of that, it was super hard to find Coors beer in the eastern U.S. That's why the idea of smuggling beer across the country wasn't just a goofy plot. It was actually based on something that could have really happened. The character of Sheriff Buford T. Justice, who spends the movie chasing Bandit and Snowman, was also based on something real. Jackie Gleason played the sheriff, and many fans were surprised to learn that the over-the-top, loud, and wild character was actually based on Burt Reynolds' own father. Burt's dad had been a strict police chief in Florida, and he used that real-life experience to help create the character of Buford. There was also something else going on behind the scenes, a romantic connection that started on the set. As Sally Field and Burt Reynolds worked together, they got closer and closer. At first, it was just acting, but their chemistry was so strong that it turned into a real-life romance. They started dating during the making of the movie. Their relationship didn't last forever, but they were together, on and off, for about 5 years before calling it quits. The cars in the movie were a big part of what made it exciting, especially the black Pontiac Trans Am that Bandit drove. But the production had some trouble getting enough of the cars. Hal Needham was only given 4 of them by Pontiac. That might sound like plenty, but the movie had so many wild stunts that 3 of the cars got badly damaged or destroyed. By the end, the last one barely even ran. Even so, the movie made the Trans Am super popular. After the film came out, people rushed out to buy one, and sales of the car doubled in just 2 years. But many buyers were let down when they realized that a lot of what made the car look cool in the movie had been done with tricks or editing. It wasn't quite the same in real life. Another surprising thing was the movie's music. Jerry Reed, who played Snowman, was already a famous country singer before he acted in the film. He had over 40 hit songs before the movie, so the director, Hal Needham, asked him to write the theme song for the film. Jerry didn't get around to writing it until the very end, but one night he stayed up late and wrote the song Eastbound and Down, which ended up becoming one of the most memorable parts of the whole movie. Even though there wasn't a strong script, the film still ended up being a big hit. So while Smokey and the Bandit might look like a simple, silly movie, it was full of surprises, both on and off the screen. From real-life inspiration to unexpected romance and improvised scenes, the film had more going on than most people realized. But how did a man who once seemed to have everything, fame, charm, and a fortune, end up facing so many troubles? Keep watching to find out. The fame, fortune, and fall of Burt Reynolds. Burt Reynolds was one of the most famous movie stars in Hollywood for many years. He had a big smile, a strong voice, and that mustache that people always remembered. In the 70s and 80s, Burt was one of the most popular actors in the whole world. People loved to watch him in action movies, comedies, and even serious roles. At one point, he was the top-paid actor in all of Hollywood. He was not just acting in movies, he was also working behind the scenes, helping to direct and produce films. But even though he made a lot of money during his career, things didn't stay that way forever. Over time, Burt ran into many money problems, and his life became much harder. At the very top of his career, Burt made around $60 million. That's a lot of money. And if you think about what that would be worth today, it would be more like $150 million. But by the time he died in 2018, all of that money had nearly disappeared. In the end, his net worth had dropped all the way down to just $3 million. That's still a lot of money for most people, but not for someone who once had so much. What caused this? Well, there were many reasons. He made bad investments, got into legal trouble, and spent way more than he should have on things he didn't really need. One of his biggest money mistakes happened in the 80s. He decided to invest in a restaurant business. He didn't just invest a little, he put a lot of money into it. He and his business partner bought 30 locations, and Burt even signed all the leases himself. Sadly, the restaurants didn't do well. Not many people are there, and the management wasn't good. The business started to fail quickly. Trying to fix things, Burt and his partner hired someone to help save the company. But instead of making things better, that person talked them into another restaurant investment. That one failed too. What started out as a loss of maybe $5 or $6 million soon turned into a huge loss of $20 to $30 million. It was a disaster that just kept getting worse. By the time the 90s came along, Burt wasn't making as much money as before. He was still trying to live the same way he used to: big houses, fancy cars, lots of spending. But the money wasn't coming in like it used to. He borrowed $4 million from CBS, the television company. He hoped he could pay them back once his TV show, Evening Shade, made it into syndication, which means it would air again and again and bring in money. But that never happened. The show was canceled after only 4 seasons, just before it could make any money from reruns. So Burt couldn't pay the money back. CBS ended up suing him, and in 1996, Burt had to file for bankruptcy. He owed more than $10 million, but only had around $6.65 million in assets. He even owed over $120,000 just to the person who made his wigs. Even after all that, Burt kept working. He kept acting in movies and on TV, hoping to make enough to catch up. But things didn't really get better. In 2014, he had to start selling his personal things, his awards, his movie memorabilia, even some of his furniture, just to try to pay off almost $10 million in debt. One of his homes in Florida was also in trouble. He owed over $1 million on the mortgage, and the bank wanted to take it back. His big house was close to being lost, just like his money. But if his struggles with family and public image were already shocking, what happened next would leave even his biggest fans speechless. How deep did the drama really go? To learn more, keep watching. Roots, resilience, and a lasting legacy. Burt was born on February 11, 1936, in Lansing, Michigan. His background came from many different places. He had Dutch, English, Scots-Irish, and Scottish roots. He also said that he had some Cherokee and Italian heritage. When he was still a kid, his family moved to Florida. That's where Burt grew up and became a strong athlete. In high school, he was a great football player. He played fullback and was so good that many colleges wanted him. He ended up choosing Florida State University, where he went on a football scholarship. He even became the team's quarterback in 1954. One of his roommates at college was Lee Corso, who would later become famous for talking about college football on TV. Burt had dreams of being a big football star, but life had other plans. He hurt his knee badly in a game. Then, while he was recovering, he got into a car accident, which made his injuries even worse. The doctors had to remove his spleen. Because of all this, his football career came to a sudden end. After that, Burt thought about becoming a police officer or working in law enforcement. But one of his college professors had a different idea. That teacher told him to try out for a school play. Burt gave it a shot, even though he had never acted before. He got the lead role and ended up winning a big acting award in Florida. That moment changed everything for him. After that, Burt moved to New York City. He started acting in small plays and slowly worked his way up. In 1961, he landed a role in a movie called Angel Baby. That was his first big break. But the movie that really made him a star was Deliverance in 1972. After that film, everyone knew who Burt Reynolds was. He became a huge star and acted in hit after hit. People loved to see him on the screen. But like many stars, Burt's career started to slow down. He wasn't getting big roles anymore. Then, in 1997, he starred in Boogie Nights. That movie brought him back into the spotlight. He even got nominated for an Academy Award for that role. But even with that success, he didn't get the same kind of big roles again. He took smaller parts in movies like Snapshots, Time of the Wolf in 2002, and Hard Ground in 2003. He also did some television movies like Johnson County War and Miss Letty and Me. In 2012, he did something fun. He voiced a cartoon version of himself in the animated TV show Archer. That character was based on the old tough guy image Burt had in his earlier films. Later, famous director Quentin Tarantino picked Burt to act in the movie Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. But Burt passed away before he could film his scenes. His last appearances were in two smaller movies, An Innocent Kiss, which came out in 2019, and Defining Moments, which was released in 2020, 2 years after he died. Burt owned a special home in the mountains of North Carolina, in a town called Highlands. He first saw that area while filming Deliverance in 1972. He fell in love with the place and bought a home there with his wife at the time, actress Lonnie Anderson. The home was fancy, but also cozy. It had wooden beams, stone fireplaces, and a sunken living room. There were 4 bedrooms and 4.5 bathrooms. Lonnie even helped design a special bathroom. The house also had a heated swimming pool, a hot tub, a rooftop bar, and a place to entertain guests. It sat on 1 acre of land, with amazing views of the Blue Ridge Mountains. Even though it felt private and peaceful, it was only a short drive to town. They eventually sold the house, and it was bought for close to $3 million. There was another house Burt had in his hometown of Lansing, Michigan. But this house was very different. It wasn't taken care of and slowly started to fall apart. Burt had never fixed it up, and over time, it became abandoned. The property had a few small buildings, like a carriage house and a little stone washing room. After many years of no maintenance, the whole place started to crumble. It was a sad sight, and showed how different parts of Burt's life had gone in very different directions. Burt Reynolds lived a life full of big ups and painful downs. He was a superstar and made millions, but he also lost almost all of it. He made people laugh, cry, and cheer in theaters, but behind the scenes, he was dealing with debt, lawsuits, and heartbreak. Still, no matter what happened, Burt remained one of the most unforgettable faces in movie history. Do you think the comic blockbuster Smokey and the Bandit is scripted? Share your thoughts in the comments section below. Thank you for watching this video. We hope you found it interesting. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Click the next video shown on your screen to catch up on your favorite celebrity stories. See you there.